Hi, welcome to the Kindness Advantage podcast. I'm your host, Cindy Rowe, and I love having guests on my show. But, normally my podcast is 10 minutes or less. But today I have a special guest who I have not met in real life, but one day we will. We have become Kindness Sisters on LinkedIn. I want to introduce you to my friend, Linda Cohen. Thank you so much for being here, Linda.
Hey, Cindy, I'm so excited. I'm so glad you asked me. Thank you.
So we met virtually through a LinkedIn, well, actually just on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And then kind of because we do very similar things. And then she invited me to a LinkedIn group, the Kindness Work Circle, Kindness Circle. I don't even know what it's called. Kindness in Work, right?
Kindness
Something
in
like that.
Yeah, yeah.
But a whole bunch of amazing people around the world who promote kindness in different ways. We have our own little group, and we chat and we share and we meet monthly to form those deeper connections. And, Linda invited me to that group, and I've been able to meet some fabulous women. But Linda, please give our my listeners a little bit background on you and where you're from, all those good things.
Thank you, Cindy. And I'm so happy that you have this podcast because, yes, we do similar things, but I have never had the dream or desire to run my own podcast. So I was so happy to be part of yours, which is fabulous. And I love all the tips you give. And I really feel like you could be saying the same words I love to say about how we can amplify kindness in the world and in the workplaces. So, yeah, how did I get it? I'm out in Portland, Oregon, so I'm in the Pacific Northwest. Although I'm originally from New England, Boston, and Vermont, and I've been out here 30 years. And I got into this work kind of crazily. Took on a project after my dad died in 2006 to do 1,000 mitzvahs in his memory. And a mitzvah in Judaism is a good deed or an act of kindness. And it was a blog, and it was kind of my way to move through the grief that I felt after losing my dad. And I will say we had a difficult relationship. We had some healing, thank goodness, before he passed away. So I think it was like a way to honor him. And that project started when I was a full-time stay-at-home mom. I had no idea that it would kind of propel me into my first book, a TED Talk, becoming a professional speaker, and really speaking about this idea of kindness and how kindness impacts us personally, and then eventually morphing into how kindness in the workplace can make a huge amount of difference. So 2013 was when I first started speaking with really businesses and organizations. That's where I've been for the last 10 years. And I wrote my second book during the pandemic, The Economy of Kindness, How Kindness Transforms Your Bottom Line. Yay, which you have a copy. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, and that was really for me the place to put these stories. While the first book was really about family acts of kindness. I was a volunteer in the school. I would do different things personally. I never really had a set out agenda what any of those 1,000 mitzvahs or acts of kindness would be. So they were kind of organic. But I knew that that book didn't resonate any longer with my professional audiences as much. So I said, I have to write a second book. And it's a lot of work to write a book. So I think that was daunting to me. But when we were all grounded during the pandemic, and my work was mostly virtual, that gave me some time to sit down and put those stories out. And I love the stories that I've heard in audiences, I think resonate with managers and leaders around how the simple ways you can elevate kindness.
Yeah. So our backgrounds and our stories are so similar because how I grew in kindness was by, a really dark time in my life and somebody telling me to do an act of kindness to kind of change my mood. And then it was my 40th birthday, and I decided to do a challenge to do an act of kindness for 31 days for my birthday month. And that's really where it changed my life and how I saw how powerful kindness was. And then it was the pandemic where I started to really dig deeper into the research, aka Google.
Yeah.
But I started Googling the importance of kindness at work because I was realizing that when I was 40 and did that activity, that's how I built my business.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know it with that core foundation of kindness, a core value of kindness. I had no idea. I just did it. And so when I started digging in the research, I was like, more businesses need to know about this. It is
Right.
so important. And so it's really cool. Now, I have read your book and I've highlighted it. So I will put your book in the show notes for other people to grab it, because there are great stories. There are easy things that, and I think that's even what we talk about. Like, most of the stuff is easy to
Right.
do. We just don't think of it, right? And in the moment, when I talk about it being intentional with kindness every day, and
Totally.
then it becomes more natural and easier to do in those hard situations that we
Totally.
deal with people at work or those tough conversations. But
Totally.
um,
And yeah, sorry.
no, go
I was
ahead,
I was just
share
gonna say,
your,
I
share
think
that.
your story of taking on something and my story of taking on something, it changed probably how we walked in the world, which is
Oh yeah.
definitely what I discovered and which is what I also love to share, because when we are intentional and looking for the things we can do, we know that it elevates our happiness. It helps us feel less, anxiety and stress. I mean, there's research about that, which I didn't know back when I took on
Mhm.
that project. Maybe you didn't know it at the beginning either. It was later on you got that. And that's actually been the cool thing, Cindy, about being in this work now for so many years. There's so much great research now. There was not the research. So it's not a soft topic. It's not weakness,
No.
and I swear if I could get paid every time somebody calls kindness a weakness, having those tough conversations you talked about, that could actually be a gift to that young person. If there's somebody you have to have a difficult conversation with, but you're helping them be better as, I mean, I'm not even just saying a young person, maybe it's just a coworker of some kind, but when you give them that information and it helps them be better, maybe 5 or 10 years later, they'll be like, I know that was hard for you, but thank you for that conversation. Like, you never know what's going to happen with that. And that's one of
Yeah.
the things, I'm sure you talk to leaders about that too. It's like the difficult conversations had with empathy and compassion. If you have to let someone go, if there's something going on with someone in your organization, it can make a huge difference. But
Yeah.
it's nice to do it with compassion.
Absolutely. And that takes a lot of strength and courage, because those nobody wants to get uncomfortable, and nobody wants to tell people that they've messed up or they're not good enough or whatever. I mean, but when you can help mold them and share with them what is going wrong,
Right.
they're able to take that and either do it somewhere else or just maybe think about it.
Right.
I share that. I've had a nice leader and I've had a kind leader. The nice leader told me I was doing an amazing job, and then 3 weeks later I got fired. I'm
Oh,
like, wait a second.
yeah.
Well, what she wasn't telling me was that everything I turned in, she would redo. But she didn't want to tell me that I was
Yeah, no, and
sucking.
if she told you, you had a chance to get better. You had the
Yeah.
chance to do better and to learn, yeah, so many stories like that. And, I think, I'm sure you're finding this too, but, managers that lead with kindness, um, will be a manager people might follow to another job. They
Oh,
might
yeah.
be someone that they remember for a decade or 2 decades. Like, that person stands out to them as someone who really managed well. And I'll be honest, like, I think a lot of people get promoted to management without any of the skills you need. Without,
Yeah.
maybe you did your job well, but then you get promoted to be a manager because you did your job well. And now you're doing something totally different. And maybe not
Yeah.
even something you really like, managing people. You really like
Yeah.
doing the thing you were doing. So I think that's when companies are doing a disservice to their employees, not helping them with the leadership skills you need to manage people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but kindness, yeah. I'm so grateful to now know more people, because I will say, when I started, it felt a little lonely. It definitely felt like, you know, what am I doing? And who's going to want this? And people even ask me as a young speaker, like, who's going to hire you to talk about kindness? And you and I both know that our work is in demand now. This
Yeah.
conversation about kindness, we are busy, not just
Mhm.
you and I, but many other speakers we know who are working and talking about these kinds of topics. So there's a paradigm shift, I believe, in
Yeah.
what people are willing to put up with and what they want. So nobody has asked me that in many, many years now. So
Yeah, whenever I tell people that I speak on kindness, they're like, "Wow, we need you at my company,"
Totally.
or "That's so needed right now." I'm like, "Yeah,
Totally.
here's my
Totally.
card."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've met a few people that way, Cindy, that have turned into, work.
Uh,
It's crazy how that happens. So,
yeah, and it's
yeah,
such a I mean, and for me, it's I'm so, passionate about it because of how it shifted and changed my life. I want that for everybody,
totally,
and it could just start with your personal self, but it's if you're in any position, it's going to bleed over. And so that's why the intentional kindness, you
totally.
know, really makes a difference, because you're going to have better friendships, better family relationships, better, working relationships. You build that trust, that connection, all those things. Yeah, one of the research pieces that I use in my presentation is, when you do the kind acts, how your serotonin and dopamine levels go up, and that reduces all the things that we talk about: stress, heart, all those bad things. And I'm
Right,
like, that's what happened to me in my 40th birthday activity,
yeah,
and I had no idea,
right,
and like it helped with my depression. It helped with how I was viewing the world, and there's so much power in kindness. But
Is
what
there
are
is
your
there a quote? Is there a quote? I feel like there's a Chinese proverb and it's like on the top of my head, but maybe I cannot think of it. It's something like, you know, if you want if you want to feed somebody, you fish, and if you want to
oh
take a nap, and then if you want to like be happy, help someone. Do you know what I'm
yeah,
talking about?
I
That's
yeah, I know where you're going. Yeah, I've
yeah.
heard
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
And I feel like that is definitely when you're talking about being intentional about it, and I'm sure you do this too with your clients and your, your people, your teams you're talking to. Is like, I actually speak a lot in senior living. I created a bingo, so senior living, lots of bingo. It's a big, pastime there.
Mhm.
So I created like a kindness bingo card, and we put on that card the kind of behaviors we would want, which is like, smile at someone you struggle with, or do something a little bit for someone who needs it, or invite somebody new,
Mm,
to have lunch with you. These are not huge things. These are not necessarily even things that have to cost money. It's just the culture that you're creating. And people spend 8-10 hours a day at work. If you have a toxic work environment, number one, people are not going to stick around. But number two, people might get sick. There might be,
mhm.
depression, like you're saying, stress, all those things cause other things. So, but if you have places where people love to go, and I don't know if this is part of your talk, but I remember when I first started talking, I said, name a place you love to go. You love to shop there. Because I wanted to get a sense of other businesses and companies that people love to go to. And
Mhm.
I don't know if you have Trader Joe's in your part of the country, but
Yeah,
it was fun to me what places got named,
yeah,
and repeatedly in audiences. And sometimes it would be like a local pizza shop, or it would be a local business. And they'd be like, oh, they remember my name. And so it's really fun, I think, to start thinking about who's doing it well. Let's try to emulate those kinds of companies.
yeah.
So
And then I use that same thing with my marketing clients. I'm like, who do you admire? What marketing materials do you admire? Like, and it doesn't even have to be in your industry. Like,
right,
and like, what makes them stand out to you?
right, right,
And we can do that. And
right,
same thing with leadership, and same thing when you visit a place and you go to the Ritz-Carlton, and how they treat you. Like, well, that's their culture.
right,
You can build that same culture, and it starts with you.
right. Do you talk
Really, I
about
mean,
do you know about the 10-5 way with Ritz Carlton?
no, I don't, but I'm
So
gonna
it's
learn right now.
yeah, so write it down, 10-5 way, look it up. Sean Anker, he shared this years ago. I think I heard about it because he wrote a book about happiness. But the 10-5 way is in a company, and Ritz-Carlton was the one who first modeled this for hospitality. When you're 10 feet away from someone, you smile at them and wave. And when you're 5 feet away from them, you smile and wave and say hello. And Sean took this idea to like a healthcare organization, and and there were doctors who were like, well, we're not gonna, like, that just seems so ridiculous, so simple. But it ended up making a huge difference in their bottom line, and that became the culture of that healthcare
Yeah,
organization, of really seeing people and not being tired. And it's even worse now with our phones. I mean, this was probably 10 years ago, but I don't know if you've ever been without your phone. A few months ago, I had to like get my phone worked on, so I was at the mall, dropped it off, walking around without a phone, and I was just noticing how everybody is just tied into these things. They are
Yeah.
really, they're not, I won't say they're making us less kind, but I think they're making us less connected to other human beings.
Yeah.
And so, you know, putting that down, just being present with somebody, making eye contact, you know, smiling at them, that can make a big difference. So
Yeah. And it's so simple to do. I am been reading Brene Brown's Daring Leadership book. I can't, what is the name of it? Is that what it is?
dare to lead, I think.
Dare to Lead, yes.
I
And
love that,
just
yeah.
this morning, she talked about how when they have conversations of employees' core values, you know, how you can better work with them, like how that actually builds a better connection. But then she took it a next step further. How many employees know the company's core values, and how are your core values measured, or you know, with the employee performance? And I was like, oh, that is
Huge.
incredible, because I can guarantee you a lot of employees don't know the core values of their company, and it's not driven home, and they're there for a reason, right? But it's the leadership that, you know, maybe it's really, they don't buy into it too. But I thought, wow, there's something there too, because I mean, kindness is a core value of mine, and which kind of seems silly because that's duh. But I mean, I actually had to think about it, because if you had only had to pick two core values,
Right.
what would they be? And I'm like, well, kindness is it, but should
Yeah.
I put something else because that's an understood? But then I'm like, no, because whatever I do, I try to think about
Right.
kindness, you
Right.
know, and I
Through
do it
that
with
lens.
kindness,
Yeah.
you know, yeah, through
Have
that
you
lens.
ever had a bad day, Cindy? Have you ever had a bad day and you know you speak about kindness? So you have to like say, oh, and I mean, I'm called the kindness catalyst. Like it's on my card, and it's like what I have been called. And so I promote that. And it's like, I don't know if I can say the word bitch, but you can't really, if you're having a bad day and you know, I like immediately I was at a dentist's office. Nobody told me why we were late. Nobody told me what was going on. It was kind of a difficult interaction, and I was feeling steamed up, you know, and it was like at the time I was recording my bite-sized kindness. And I remember physically not getting upset, you know, taking it down, being kind to the person, walking outside and being like, that was so hard to be patient, you know, in that moment, because what I really wanted to do was like just yell at that person who really had nothing to do with what was going on. And I don't know, during the pandemic, I remember we went out, we had been, you know, told to stay home for all of those many first months. And we finally went out on the road. We were at a restaurant, like going, I think, on a little road trip. And the waitress was crying when she came up to our table to say hello.
Oh,
Somebody had thrown silverware at her, like the previous customer. And we were just like, listen, sweetie, we're not going to do any of that to you. And we are so sorry. That was like totally unacceptable, you know? So, so we can both keep ourselves patient. We can both help someone else when somebody else has been impatient, and at least acknowledge, I don't know, you know, I've seen something that was not okay, and it's not okay to treat somebody like that. So,
yeah, I'm actually called around my community the kindness queen, and I hate it.
well,
I
you hate
hate
it?
it.
Why?
Only because what if I'm having a bad day? Like I can't. I
Nope.
have to. Like it's hard because you got to check yourself, right? And I'm like, that's the thing. And I talk about this too with, you know, people I work with, the presentations I serve, you know, the clients I serve. I'm like, at the end of the day, I'm still human.
Of course.
And I may not do something as kind on a bad day that, you know, I would have liked to. But here's the difference is I'm now aware of it. I'm
Right.
aware that I did not act the way I should have acted, and I can do something about it.
Right.
10 years ago, I would have been like, that's
Yeah.
their problem, not mine. Now
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, that was not how I should have handled that. I can go back and be very authentic in my apology, and they can feel it. They feel that I'm genuine, and that gets me a lot further. But it's still like, especially when I was going through all that early heavy grief, you
Yeah.
know, I didn't have a smile on my face. I looked like death and myself, and like, you know, just didn't really want to be kind to anybody. I wasn't kind to myself. Wasn't thinking
We're
about being
role
kind to others.
modeling reality. We're role modeling what is
Yeah,
hard about being humans, that not every minute is it easy. It would be
right.
different if it was always easy. And then we have stories to share. I mean, I know in my first book, there are at least 2 stories about asking for forgiveness or apologizing to somebody I did something, inappropriate or wrong. So I think that that's important for us because that way we can connect with other human beings. If they just see you as the queen of kindness, oh, but Cindy is the queen of kindness, Linda's the kindness catalyst, they don't have any issues, they don't have any challenges. Well, no, we do too. And we're just telling you, we also struggle with this, but now we're aware I didn't behave in the highest way that I wanted to. We're being mindful of that and
Yeah,
saying I'm sorry or doing better the next time, And I think
yeah,
that's all we can ask for. I think human beings, it's messy being a human, relationships
for
are
sure.
messy, I mean, even my
Mhm.
kids, I've got grown kids now in their 20s and, it's messy. And I'm so happy that my kids are actually at the place where they can call me on something or ask for what they need, or say,
Mhm.
it's hard to get angry with you. And I really need to right now. So I appreciate that about my, young adult kids. So,
Yeah,
and that's true for everybody, for every one of us in the world.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, we get tested on our kindness every day, and um, it's great that I'm able. I'm not going to speak for you, but I'm able to point it out and try to model the right behavior, and share things like kindly correct people, I
Yeah.
guess, or afterwards be like, you probably could have handled that a little bit better.
Yeah.
And it's building the awareness not only with myself but with the people around me, like, oh yeah, you're right,
Yeah.
yeah, you kind
And
of
now,
know this.
do you ever notice somebody doing something awesome or giving a compliment? Like, I feel like I notice those things too,
Yeah.
witnessing kindness being done by someone, and sometimes, that'll happen in a public place. I'll like thank that person. Like,
Oh
I
yeah.
really appreciated you doing that. That person needed to hear that. And thank you for,
Yeah,
because I feel like it's all a boomerang. And if we want
sure.
more of the kindness and compassion and empathy, every time we see it and notice it, we should celebrate it. I mean, my dream, and I don't know about you, my dream is that maybe the news would share more of what's good. And I know you and I are connected to all sorts of people who are doing this individually, and we're trying to come together and amplify things so that it gets more out there. But I feel like, unfortunately, our social media and our media is sort of set up to be all the bad. And so
Yeah,
there are definitely people who I think feel like only things happening out there are the bad things.
yeah,
And I don't believe that's true. I like my main DNA does not believe that there's only bad out there. I believe there's
right.
a ton of good that's happening every day in every community and every company. Just maybe not what we're talking about because we tend to be focusing on the bad news.
Oh, the negative. Yeah, that's one of my things. And when I start my nonprofit is to have a news channel of just good news.
Oh,
So that's part of it. I
okay.
don't know when it'll happen, but that's
Okay.
been a very big dream of mine, and
I hope
um,
it happens in our lifetime, Cindy. I
I
would
hope so
love that.
too.
Yeah.
I really do too. Yeah, and I actually was walking my dogs. Was it last night or the night before? Whatever. Recently,
Yeah.
and this young kid, maybe 10, 12, on his bike, looking up and forward. And when he rode by us, he's like, "Hi," and I was like, "What a good kid!" Like, I didn't say hi first. He was like looking up. The next kid that rode her bike by, head down.
Head down.
I'm like, I want to tell that boy's kid or parents, like, you did a good job, because he was just like, he was happy, and he was like, I want to say hi to these people. Like, you could tell he just,
Yeah.
it was really cool. And so yeah, those moments I love um, noticing, because I
Yeah.
guess 10 years ago I probably wouldn't have, and I
Yeah.
probably would have joined in on not saying hi back or whatever. But yeah.
And hopefully that's the
So
work we can do. We can help someone else sort of wake up to what's possible. And in 5 or 10 years, they'll be saying the same thing. Like 5
yeah,
years ago, I wouldn't have done that, but now I do. So
yeah, and I share too, like, you don't need to do 31 days or a
no,
thousand, like, you don't need to do that. You just need to be more intentional with it.
yeah,
Like, and once you have that awareness, you kind of get that high and you want to keep doing it. And, it makes you feel good. And if I'm having a bad day, I will go do a kind act, I'm like, because that will make me feel better.
Yep.
And it doesn't even have to cost me money, but I'll go do it. And I'll hopefully shift my perspective and my mindset and my mood. And it works.
And it kind of starts with you. I think it starts with each of us. I know you've probably talked about this with other people and on other times of your podcast, but self-kindness is a huge thing. And as we get older, I mentioned right before we started recording that I'm really leaning into the joy, with kids who are out of the house, and my whole kind of life and stage of life has changed. It's like, I don't want to wait till I'm retired to enjoy my life. I want to find joy every day. And that means I've started doing art. I've started roller skating, things that I had never done before or did years ago when I was a child, and making sure that I'm filling my cup, because that's the way that we also, I think, keep our energy in that kindness mode. So,
yeah, I had a therapist ask me about, what hobbies do I do? And I was like, hobbies? What are those? And that, just how you're speaking, finding things that fill your cup up, those moments of joy, like, what are you doing? Especially at our age, when we don't have the littles and we don't have to, get them ready and get them out the door. And so more we can focus more on ourselves. Like, what are we doing to grow our joy, to grow ourselves? And I had to really think about it, but I'm like, I play pickleball.
So I was on a call recently where she made us write down 100 things. Like, we started with 10, but then she's like, I want you to keep growing this list. What are 100 things that bring you joy? And then she said, schedule something on your calendar. So I literally, yesterday, it said, get ice cream. Because enjoy it. And actually, it's been hot out in Portland, like really, really hot. And it's like, all you want is sit on the porch with a popsicle or watermelon or something. And that does bring me joy. So put it on your calendar. Don't wait. I mean, and this is a piece of my work as well. I added self-care and kindness to self about, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago. And I began doing loving kindness meditation at all of my keynotes, because I felt like people have forgotten that if you are not taking care of yourself, you can't serve, you can't work, you can't be a great spouse, child, parent, if you are empty. And I think because of the world we're living in and the social media and the news, there's so much swirling out around us that we don't have control over. And really the only thing we can control is all these day-to-day actions we choose. So
that's
been helpful to me to be in that place. And I hope it'll help someone else by talking about that too,
Yeah, that's a great way to kind of wrap up our conversation. But before we do, is there anything coming up in your area of expertise in your business that you want to share with my listeners and kind of promote? Of course, I'll add whatever in the show notes.
That's great. Well, I'm a keynote speaker like you are. And also I do a lot of work in senior living. So if you have any listeners who are in senior living and management, and a year ago, I created an emerging leadership program, which is this space where I feel like maybe you do have those leaders who've been promoted. So if any of you are out there and are emerging leaders, my next cohort virtually is going to begin October, early October, 2025. It's only 2025, right? We can include that in the show notes in case anybody would like to be part of that. There is a cost for the virtual program. Hopefully your company might consider paying for you to do it, because you will work on confidence, communication, recognition, self-care, adaptability, important topics, I think, as you grow into your own leadership skills.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Thank you for having me get a chance to talk with you.
Yeah, it's been amazing. And I've loved following you on LinkedIn. I'm so glad that we connected in that group and kind of grew our virtual friendship a little bit more. And even today, and one day, whether you're in Chicago area or I'm out there,
we're going to get to meet in person and give each other a big old hug in real life. I can't wait. Yeah, it's going to happen.
For sure. But I will also put your book, if you want to check out this book, The Economy of Kindness, How Kindness Transforms Your Bottom Line, which is both of what we are very passionate about with speaking with businesses. I think you'll find it very valuable, but I'll put that in the show notes. And thank you so much, Linda, for your time and this great conversation. It's been a blast, and I wish you the best, and I can't wait to continually watching your success and, growing our kindness mission throughout the
Around the
world.
globe. Yep. I'm right there. Thank you. You too, Cindy.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for tuning in, everybody. And like I end every podcast, together we create waves of change through kindness.